Harihi Om. Om. Narayanaaya Paripurna Gunarnavaya Vishwodaya Sthitilayo Niyati Pradaya Jnana Pradaya Vibudha Surasaukya Dukkha Satkaranaya Vitataya Namo Namaste. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Devam Narayanam Natva Sarvadosha Vivarjitam Paripurnam Gurunshya Geetartham Vakshyami Leshatah Lakshmi Narayanam Natva Purna Bodhan Gurunapi Kurma Shri Krishna Geetaya Bhashya Duktartha Sangraham. Harihi Om. Welcome everyone. Happy Hanumat Jayanti greetings to all the Sadbhaktas here. This is a weekly once gathering that we do every Saturday, 8 o'clock in the morning till about 9:30. For 90 minutes, we try to look at the word-by-word breakdown of the Bhagavad-Gita shlokas. So far, we have completed till the 36th shloka of the 4th Adhyaya, which is sometimes called the Jnana Yoga, sometimes called the Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. These names don't make much of a difference, slight variation. Unlike the variation, I mean, there was a nice audio tape that was being played by Shraddha ji before we started that had a slight variation to what we popularly know. Like, for example, the 35th shloka of the same chapter, Yena Bhutanya Sheshena Drakshasyatmanyato Mayi. By what knowledge, all the living beings, will be able to see that Bhagavan, in them, without any doubt. Asheshena. This version said Yena Bhutanya Sheshani. Asheshani. Now I really don't know what it means, but there must be some intelligent meaning to it. That's the first time I'm hearing this. So I could catch that because it sounded a little different and I was trying to make sense. So the Patantaras are there, slight variations are there, but then not much. Bhagavad-Gita so far is one of the most consistent scriptures that we have across the country in terms of the version changes. Not much is there. That is something that I could catch today. Thanks to Shraddha ji for playing that, but somehow I need to make sense of what it actually is trying to say with that variation. We will try to get there at one point in time where I can get my hands around that. But so far, in the 36 shlokas of the 4th Adhyaya, the story is pretty simple. Jnana, the awareness. It's interesting to note that the 4th Adhyaya is essentially a continuation of the 3rd Adhyaya. Of course, the entire Bhagavad-Gita is a continuous story, but there is no Arjuna Uvacha when we start the 4th Adhyaya. The question from Arjuna, the inquiry from Arjuna, is where we left the 3rd Adhyaya. The last question from Arjuna has been, okay, I know you're telling me that we all need to follow our dharma. We all need to do our vihita karma. We all need to do our yajnartha karma. Right? All of this is the same, right? Our duty, our ordained duty, is primarily what we do for the sake of the wider benefit rather than selfish, sense-gratifying kind of actions, right? So we need to do something further wider. So Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha. That's where Krishna concludes the Karma Yoga, right? Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharma Swanushtita. It is always good for us to do our own dharma, Swadharma, even if we are not so perfect at it, rather than doing somebody else's dharma, no matter how good we are at it. Back to the context, Arjuna wants to give up the arms and take to the begging, right? Take to the asceticism. And he wants to know what is good. So Krishna's answer is simple. You might be bad at war, you might be excellent at begging, but your Swadharma is war. So you do that, even if you die. Swadharme Nidhanam Api Shreya. Even if you die doing your Swadharma, that is great for you. Because the question from Arjuna before that is, what is good for me? Yena Shreyo Hamapnayam. What is it that is good for me? From what I will achieve greatness, right? Those are the kind of questions. So Krishna's answer is simple. Do your duty. Do your Vihita Karma. Do your Yajnartha Karma. And offer everything to Bhagavan, right? Offer everything to Bhagavan. Loka Sangrahamevartha. For the sake of the welfare of the community. So Arjuna's question is quite logical. We all know what is right. But why do we go wrong? When we want to do the right things, there is something that drags us away forcibly. And I think we kept on giving the examples, right? The child has an exam tomorrow. The child knows the importance of the exam tomorrow. The child knows very well that the exam does not come day after, right? We have to do it tomorrow. But why do we end up spending more time in the play area today? Why do we have the urge to watch a little more of TV today, right? Something that is dragging us forcibly. And that is where Krishna explains, right? This is kama, krodha, rooted in our thing. And it kind of, dilutes the jnana of our indriyas, of our manas and the buddhi. So jnana comes from there, right? Because when these three antakaranas are clouded with ajnana, the jnana has to come. That's where we are led into the fourth adhyaya. Because towards the end of the third adhyaya, we get to hear that there is something higher than something, right? So indriyas are great. More than the indriyas are the manas. Higher than the manas is the buddhi, and there is something else beyond the buddhi, right? So paratattva. So the first 15 shlokas of the jnana is paratattva. Paratattva, when you look at it, I think it comes out to a very clear understanding. Okay, there is something bigger than what we can grasp. So the best thing to do is offer everything, because the ultimate para is the Paramatma. So also when we hear the Paratattva, eventually it boils down to getting to hear the Paramatma Tattva. Now Krishna goes on to explain who he is, in a very beautiful fashion. Like, Ajopi san Avyayatma, Bhutanam Ishvaropi san. So, I am the Lord of the entire, creation. Prakritim Swamati, and I, assume my own Prakriti, because this nature, this insentient nature, is also part of him, right? So, so everything is part of him. The sentient, the insentient, the temporal, the permanent, all of this is him, right? It's all subset of him. So he will assume a little bit of his own prakriti and then come. And then he goes on to explain, don't bother about dharma, the bigger adharma. Whenever that goes for a toss, I will come and rectify it. Like, he mentions those two lines, right? Paritranaya sadhuna, vinashaya dushkritam, dharma samsthapanarthaya. So whenever you think dharma is at risk, whenever good people are at risk, whenever the bad people are kind of, ruling the roost, I will come and set the order. Don't worry. Sambhavami, yuge, again and again, time after time, I keep coming, right? And then he goes on to explain a little bit about his form, a little bit about the Bhagavad Rupa from the Tattva point of view. Like, he says, like, where he says, Janma karma cha me divyam veti iti tattvataha, like, one who understands all of these actions of mine through Tattva, that kind of a person does not return back. And then he goes on to explain final things, and finally to conclude in that section till about the 15 shlokas of the fourth adhyaya, where he says, understand this, understand there is Bhagavan. All the good things that you need in your life are given by me. I have given multiple different orders. I've set different systems that can help you achieve what you want. The human beings to achieve what they want. The fourfold Varnashrama, the different Abhimani Devatas, for our different, Kamshantaha Karmanam Siddhim, he says, like, for whatever desires you have, when you offer your prayers to the different Abhimani Devatas, through them I will grant you. Because at the end of the day, whoever you worship, you are eventually worshipping me. So he explains this entire Bhagavad Rupa, Bhagavad Tattva, very beautifully. Not in detail, but then the effect of the Bhagavad Tattva, right? He explains in this chapter, we get to hear the effect of the Bhagavad Tattva, one form of it, right? And then that will help us understand, okay, the risk is that we know what to do, but we will go wrong in terms of doing that. And the solution to that is offer yourself completely to Bhagavan. Like, because that's the ultimate thing that can, control anything. Like, whether the Indriyas get swayed by attractions, or the Manas goes weak on the knees and cannot control the Indriyas, and the Buddhi loses its discriminatory power and does not tell the Manas what is right and what is not. Okay, or the Buddhi is weak, like, because the Vasanas can overpower us. Atma can be very strong. Some of the tendencies within the Atma can be pretty strong, that can overpower. The only way to control that Atma is through the Paramatma, like, surrendering everything to Bhagavan, and then nothing what we do is what we do. Like, I have an urge to drink coffee. I have the cup of coffee next to me, but I can't because I'm doing a seva, right? I can't keep sipping because for me, not even somebody's seva. I'm doing a Bhagavad Karya. So when I constantly condition myself to that, then those vasanas can be kept under check, and Finally, he concludes on the 15th shloka. Evam jnatva kritam karma purvairapi mumukshibhi. So, this is how all your ancestors also did all their duty. You also do the same. Like, and, you know, you know, and you also become a mumukshu, basically mumukshu, right? I mean, moksha. You also desire that moksha, mukti. Mukti from what he explains that. From 16th shloka till about 30th, 33rd shloka, we hear the, okay, once we are aware of what can go wrong, the next section is all about nivritti, pravritti, nivritti. What to do, what not to do. That's the big question, right? Because that is what determines the character, our decision-making abilities. Pravritti, nivritti, what to do, what not to do. And he starts off saying that, what is to do, what is not to do, nobody knows very well. Kim karma, kim akarma, iti kavayaha api. Even the well-learned people also. Atra mohitaha. They are deluded here. Okay, then I will explain. So he goes on to explain. I think the most telling shloka there is that the 18th shloka. Perhaps the full summary of the entire chapter. Karmani akarma yaha pashyet. One who can see akarma in karma. And karmani akarmani cha karma. Okay, one who can also see karma in akarma. To sort it out, simply put, if I can see recreation in my duty, and if I can see duty in my recreation, right? Karmani, karma, karmani, akarma, yaha pashyet. One who can see akarma in karma. Akarma is basically vidhi nisheda rahita. There is no ordinance for it. There is no forbiddance for it, right? So we do it for the sake of our kama, for our recreation, vihara, vihaya, shayya, ashana, bhojana. These the different things, recreation, sleep, eat. Like, nobody tells me, but if I can show the same resistancelessness, there is absolutely no resistance when I do akarma, right? When I watch movie that I like, there is no resistance. Like people, when they dance on the dance floor, there is no resistance from their body, though they are sweating profusely. On the other hand, sitting in front of a laptop and then typing something, sitting under an AC chamber, can be tiring for a lot of people, right? But one is karma, that is why it becomes tiring. One is akarma, which is recreation, not so tiring. So if I can see akarma in karma, if I can see the recreational resistancelessness in my duty, and if I can see sense of duty in my akarma, like when I go for a recreation, when I go for a hotel, when I go to a movie, I stay alert and I stay responsible. I can't say, no, now this is my recreation time. Whatever happens, I am not responsible. We can't do that. When we take our family to a restaurant, we got to be active, live, and live the moment completely, right? So, if somebody can see akarma in karma and karma in akarma, those are the buddhiman who can do anything in this life. That's the quintessential summary, that 18th sloka. And then he goes on to explain buddhi. So they are the intelligent people, right? He goes on to explain multiple different characteristics of buddhi, buddhiman people. One is that all of their actions are celebratory actions. They bring in a lot of enthusiastic energy in everything that they do, and they don't have any attachment. Tyaktva karma phala asangam, like and they are consistently happy. Nitya triptaha, nirashrayah. They don't have any shelter that I buy the lottery, I have to win this prize. You can't do that, right? I mean, you buy a lottery, it's your luck. You can't then plan that I have bought this lottery, the prize money is 1 crore. I will then buy, with that I will this so much money I'll buy a car. You can't take a shelter under any result, right? You have to just leave it to the destiny, right? You can nirashraya. There is no shelter that we take under any particular result. And karmani abhipravrittaha, like keep deeply engrossed in every action that we do. No, not for the heck of it, right? Deeply engrossed. And nirashiryata chittatma, without any much of asha in terms of the result, not in terms of doing, because all the things are applicable, right? Samarambha, abhipravrittaha, all of these are still relevant. Everything that we do is very well done, but there is no expectation. Like, I can't give a speech and say that, okay, this is my UPI ID, pay me some money. Like, there are some people who do that, right? I mean, in Clubhouse and all, they come and flash their UPI IDs. Like, okay, you can contribute to this cause. So you shouldn't have any such thing. Right? Nirashraya. I do this for the sake of something. No, there is no asha for what we do, right? There will be a sankalpa, but that sankalpa is not selfish. It's a wider sankalpa. for the sake of a bigger society. And in the benefit of a bigger society is my benefit. That is understood, right? But that is not very tunnel vision. It's a broad-minded, benefit that we seek. Because benefit is the thing that is clarified in the third adhyaya. We have to look at this entire creation, look at this entire life from a progressive outlook. Like, evam pravartitam chakram. This yajna chakra is a pravarti chakra. It's not a regressive chakra. Evam pravartitam chakram na anuvartayati. So one who does not partake, share his contribution in this pravarti chakra of yajna, he is a mogha. He is a wasteful life. Like, his life is completely futile, in vain. Mogham pathas jivati. Like aghayu. Like, he's a sinner. That's the definition Krishna gave in the third adhyaya. Right? Coming back, right? So everything that we do it with spurti, but without any asha, without any achraya, constantly tripta, and then do it only from the body. Shariram kevalam karma. And tyakta sarva parigraha, no attachment also. There is no material attachment, no parigraha, right? And whatever comes, profit comes, we will be happy. Yadricha labha santushtaha. Dvandva atitaha, without any confusion as to why am I doing this. Right? We spoke about all of this, and then and then finally conclude that Buddhiman are the ones who perform everything as a yajnartha sankalpa. Yajnaya acharata karma samagram praviriyate. Right? And then we get to hear different types of yajnas, and we spoke in length about this. Right? And then finally he says, all the yajnas are karmajan vidhi. They are born in karma. And all the yajnas are jnane parisamapite. They end up in jnana. Right? Yajna cannot start without karma, and yajna cannot conclude without jnana coming out of it. And that awareness, Bhagavad awareness, we call all of these as Bhagavad awareness because sarvam khalvidam brahma. Everything is brahma. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavihi, Brahmagnav, Brahmanahutam. So understanding the nature of the Brahma, of Bhagavan, is what is leading to the Bhagavad Jnana. Now, the first instance, how we gain the jnana, he goes on to say in sloka number 34. Tadvidhi pranipatena, you seek. We don't have direct understanding of Bhagavan, right? We hear. The beauty of human life is what we learn from our ancestry. That is where the importance of ancestry comes, right? There's a lot of hand-me-down, knowledge, right? I mean, we can't keep discovering Newton's law. Year after year, generation after generation. Now, Newton's law is given. Like, all your Fourier series are given. All your electricity, Faraday's law, all of Kirchhoff's law, Ohm's law, all of these are given. Now we start building all this, right? And then came Charles Babbage with his computing. Then there is something else that got added. Semiconductors came into being. Now we have digital computing. Today we can survive, with just a mobile phone, and everything comes to our doorstep, right? So there is development. It can't be possible if everything is reinvented fresh by one generation, right? We always piggyback. So ancestry is quite essential, right? Whatever comes. So we are fortunate that there is a lot of indirect knowledge. We don't have to really observe the apple falling and then deduce the gravity, right? It's given now. So there's a lot of indirect knowledge. Somebody else's experience has helped us gain some insight to life, right? So it's an indirect knowledge. So how do we gain that knowledge? Tadvidhi pranipatena, you surrender, you bow down to the Guru. Triprashnena, with a keen sense of inquiry. Sevaya, you serve that Guru. Be subservient to that Guru. Upadeshanti te jnanam, they will advise you. Who the tattvadarshinaha, jnaninaha. So these are the intelligent people who have understood, they will teach you. It's basically our dependence on the Shastras and the teachers and the education system, right? And there is a way to follow this. A very beautiful shloka, right? Some of the qualities highlighted. This is my grouse. When we look at some of the most popular Bhagavad-Gita for kids, I think this should be one of the compulsory shlokas. Tadvidhi pranipatena, how a student should take to learning. This is a very beautiful explanation. Shloka number 34 of this adhyaya, right? But many versions, like there is a book called Bhagavad-Gita for kids from Rupa Pai. Conspicuously, it misses this out, this shloka, but includes other shlokas like Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya. What will a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old understand from that shloka? Nothing much, right? I mean, Bhagavad Amsha, we will have a cartoonic impression of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. He will come back again and again and again. I mean, you don't want that. The children are better off knowing this kind of a message. I mean, there might be benefit in that, but of course, this is very important. for children to know, right? And then goes on to explain. So from Shloka 34, if till 34 is all about yajna, nivritti, what to do, what not to do. Nivritti basically means you do everything actively, but do not have attachment. Do not have attachment to the results. Like, don't have any expectations. Don't take shelter. Don't be dependent on the results. Do it for the sake of wider benefit. Yajnaya acharataha, and then different yajna types, right? So that is nivritti. The first is the Paratattva, the first 15 slokas, and then roughly about 20, 18 slokas is the Nivritti Karma. The final section, about 8, 9 slokas, is all about jnana, the importance of jnana. So first thing is how to gain the jnana, indirect jnana, surrender to the Guru, serve the Guru, and have a keen sense of inquiry. Those are the 3 points that he made. And then he goes on to explain the nature of the jnana, right? Sloka number 35, it says, Yajnatva, once you know that, na punarmoham evam yatyasi, you will never be deluded again like this. Yena bhutani asheshena, by which the living beings, without an element of doubt, drakshasi atmani, the drakshasi atmanatomai, like they will see me only within every living being. Like that Bhagavan is who is in everyone, right? We saw that when we had a brief look at the 15th adhyaya, Mamaivaamsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Every living being is eventually an amsha of that Bhagavan. And then he goes on to say, Apichedasi papebhya sarvebhya papa kriptamahasam. Like, even if you are the highest among the sinners, sarvam jnana plavenaya, all of these things only by the help of that boat, that cruise called jnana, called knowledge, vrajinam samtarishasi, you will overcome all the sins, right? Now we move into shloka number 37. So Vijayji or Shraddhaji, one of them, Shraddhaji, has shared the link. This is a website that is quite useful for what we try to do. Just click on that, you will be led into the page of shloka number 37. This web page is for the Aurobindo group, developed by Dr. Sampadananda, quite decent for what we try to do, but we will not take the meaning on the face of it, because some of these meanings are based on certain schools of thought. While there is merit in every school of thought that have given interpretation on Gita, it might not suit everyone's palate, right? I mean, my impression is that, be it ISKCON, be it Chinmayananda, be it Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Vivekananda's thoughts on Gita, or even Paramahamsa Yogananda's book on Gita, God talks to Arjuna, one of the best English language translations that we get, right? But they all have their color. Like, for example, people get ticked off, they get repulsed when they hear things like Christ consciousness being used to describe something called Kutastha Chaitanya in the Paramahamsa Yogananda book. I mean, if we can be a little tolerant to such things, eventually, they all make sense from a collection of all the 700 slokas being analyzed, right? So similarly, ISKCON books, people tend to get a little repulsed when they hear things like, if you don't this, you will be relegated to hell. So there are some very harsh messages when you look into the ISKCON book, right? But people don't want that. People want to be a little balanced outlook. Like, so different people have different tastes, different palates. So we will not take any translation on its face value, but we will use it nonetheless, right? So we click on this, we move on to shloka number 37, and that's where we begin today. It reads like this. Yathedhansi samidhognirбhasmasat kuruterjuna jnanagnih sarvakarmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. Yathedhansi samidhognirбhasmasat kuruterjuna jnanagnih sarvakarmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. When we scroll down a little bit on this page, we will see something called the Padacheda, right? So these are the useful tools within this website. So this is what we make use of in our learning. It's a very beautiful website in that extent, right? To that context. Padacheda. Yatha edhansi samidhaha agnihi bhasmasat kurute arjuna. Yatha edhansi becomes yatha edhansi. There is something called the vriddhi sandhi. Samidha agnihi, samidhognihi. There's something called the visarga, guna sandhi. Samidhognihi, basmasa, samidhognir, ihi becomes So there are some sandhis when the words come together joined. There are some different modifications that will happen Right? So agama, modification, adesha, modification, lopa. There is something new comes, so new sound comes, an existing sound gets modified, an existing sound disappears. So different types of sandhi, compounding that will happen when the words come together. Right? But nonetheless, these are the words. Yatha, edhansi, samiddha, agnihi, bhasmasat, kurute, arjuna, jnana agnihi, sarva karmani, bhasmasat, kurute, tatha. Now, these are the bunch of words, but sometimes in the shloka, the words are jumbled. So we need to unjumble the words. So for that, we need to look at the Anvaya, the section right above the Padacheda. It's called the Anvaya, the unjumbled prose order, right? As we speak, the sentence format of the same set of words, it sounds like this. Hey Arjuna, yatha samiddha agnihi edhamsi bhasmasat kurute तथा ज्ञान अग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते. Right? Now, what does that mean? For that, we need to go on top and click on dictionary. When we click on dictionary, hey Arjuna, O Arjuna, yatha, just like how, samiddha agnihi, the kindled fire, edhamsi bhasmasat kurute, turns the fuel into ashes. Whatever samiddha has been put, samiddha, edhamsi samiddha, yatha agnihi, edhamsi samiddha bhasmasat kurute. Just like how the fire will turn all the things that are poured into the yajna into ashes. Ashes means nothing, almost nothing is left over other than a few dust particles, right? That's what ashes are, completely stripped down. Tatha, just like that, jnana, the fire called knowledge or the fire of knowledge, sarva karmani, all the karma bandhana, karma imprints, all the burden of karma, bhasmasat kurute. Which means, see, this is interesting. Yajna cannot begin without karma. Okay, and karma not done properly will lead into a lot of karma bandhana. I think we spoke about that, right? Every action that we do leaves an imprint. And this is what is primarily the concept of papa. In our society, the primary concept of papa is actions that we do, the imprints, the leftovers of the actions that we do. And there is nothing called non-residual, remnant of whatever action we do, right? We just walk on the beach, there are footprints left behind. So we have done something. Like, by walking on the planet, we might have killed a few animals, inadvertently, without our knowledge. By consuming food, we might have caused a lot of harm. And all of these things will leave an imprint. Every action has an imprint, has a karma bandhana, has a karma imprint left behind. And that is primarily the papa, right? When we look at all our papa, which is basically the sum total of all the karma imprints. Some of them are sanchita, carried forward from all our many past lives. Then there are some things, agami, which are basically the accumulation of the current life. Among them, some of that, some from the sanchita, the past life karmas, have manifested in my current life, the prarabdha. Some of them have turned into vasanas, tendencies. So all of these are karma imprint, right? The only way to burn the karma imprint is through jnana, is what the shloka is saying. Just like how in the sacrificial fire, the fire will burn all the wood that we offer into ashes. Similarly, this jnana, the Paramatma jnana, once we understand the Paramatma jnana, whatever karma we do, and when we adhere to the Paramatmika tattva, right, whatever action we do is burnt into action. There is no more karma papa, that we acquire, whether it comes of agami, there is no more agamis, right? Some of the good way of doing this karma can also burn all our past life karmas, like sanchitas also they can burn. They have that power. That's what this shloka is primarily telling. Again, more and more insights into the nature of this jnana, because from shloka number 34, we are looking at the qualities of the jnana, how to acquire the jnana. Because in 33, he says, every action has to culminate into jnana. That is the part about yajna, right? Yajna, the first half of yajna is ya, which is yatna, yatata, action, the prayatna, right? Ya is action, and jna is knowledge, jnana, right? So that is what yajna is. So now we are getting to hear more and more qualities of this jnana, right? So let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says, right? It says, as a fire kindled turns to ashes its fuel, O Arjuna, so the fire of knowledge turns all works to ashes, right? I mean, see, let's look at a very, very practical implication of this. We do something in our office, for example. If it turns out good, if it turns out bad, okay, there are two possibilities, right? Something that we do, okay, because action is something that we all do. It turns out to be a good action, it turns out to be a bad action. But unless I know as what I did, why I did, what's the implication, there is no way to seek, the goodness if it turns out to be good, and defend the badness or explain the badness if it turns out to be bad. Knowledge is quite essential. I need to be aware of what exactly happened, how exactly it's going to implicate into multiple dependent structures around me and things like that. Right? So knowledge, even at the lowest of the practical senses in our day-to-day life, is quintessentially important. Like I'm making coffee. The coffee turns out to be extremely sweet. I need to be aware of what's happening around. Or coffee happens to be adequate, perfect coffee. Like, even there, I need to be knowing what exactly is happening. Otherwise, this is a perennially burden on our head. What happened? What did I do that it turned out good? What did I do? It turned out bad. So that imprint is pretty strong in many of us. Unless we are completely aloof, right? We don't want to be aloof. We want to be active, right? So knowledge is quintessentially important. Now extrapolate that higher and higher and higher, elevate ourselves higher and higher, and let's look at the entire creation in its holistic sense. That knowledge becomes extremely important for us to understand, right? So the way to understand the knowledge is the indirect way to begin with. That's what the shloka number 33 says, and then we hear the benefits of that knowledge, right? And the indirect way is through a guru by the help of scriptures. There is no way out. But that is not where it stops. It goes further, and we will see where it leads into. We click on the next on top of the screen. We go to the next shloka, shloka number 38. It reads like this: Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. This Nahi jnanena sadrusham was the logo tagline of my school. So that's quite. It had a very strong impact on my head. So this again very good tagline for schools to have this line. Nahi jnanena sadrusham. We'll see what it means. First we look at the padacheda. Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. Not much of sandhi, only one. Kalena atmani, kalena atmani. That's the only sandhi. Let's see what the unjumbled prose order looks. Right? Anvaya, it reads like this: Hey Arjuna, iha jnanena sadrusham pavitram hi na vidyate. Kalena yoga samsiddha swayam atmani tat vindati. Right? Sounds good, but what does it mean? For that, we need to click on dictionary. When we click on dictionary, Hey Arjuna, iha, here, yaha, jnanena sadrusham. Okay, equal to knowledge. Pavitram hi, indeed purifying. Okay, something that is as purifying as knowledge, na vidyate, does not exist, is not known. There is nothing known which is as purifying as knowledge. Here is Iha loka is the mortal world, right? This loka. Iha can be literally here, or Iha can also be this world. In this world, there is nothing as purifying as knowledge, right? Kalena, by time, over time, by the course of time. Yoga samsiddha, a person who is seated in proper yoga, right? Who is in constantly engaged in yoga. Samyak siddha, who's been successful in in the yoga siddhi, right? Siddhi is basically success. Sam is samyak, very well. And yoga. Yoga is that karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga. Right? They're all understood. When we say yoga, it's implied it is nishkama karma yoga. Okay, Swayam by himself or by self, Atmani in his own self. Okay, Vindati, he will obtain, he will find what the jnana. It's beautiful, right? So on one side we have the indirect knowledge, which was what was being called out in sloka number 34. But the jnana can also dawn upon us just by we being in the state of yoga, yoga siddhi. See, when we go to the village side, this is where we will see the importance of karma yoga, right? When we talk to some of the old people, all their life they have toiled, whether in the fields, agricultural fields, or wherever. But talk to them for some time, or maybe there are people who run chai shops, by the highway. People who have been running those chai shops for eons, like 10, 20, 30 years now. Talk to them about life in general. You will perhaps get some of the best valuable, wisdom, life lessons from them, through them. Because when we constantly engage ourselves in that yoga, right, constant yoga, there is a lot of realization that happens. We learn a lot of things through multiple interactions, by many, many incidences that can teach us. So knowledge, this jnana, this paramatmika jnana, is not just a thing to be found in the scriptures. We don't need the scriptures, because at the end of the day, scriptures are all codified common sense. In our own life experiences, if we stay pledged in the right path, we will acquire that over time. And not only acquire in an indirect way, this is our direct knowledge, the realization. Kalena Atmani Vindati is hinting at the realized knowledge. So there is a difference being drawn. In sloka number 34, it is an indirect knowledge, right? Today, when I hear Newton's laws of motion, Fourier series, and things like that in the classroom, this is classroom knowledge. It's an indirect knowledge. This is somebody else's experience, repeated, experimented, proven, that is being taught to us. And we, in the class, not everyone will take to that knowledge in the same sense, right? Some of them are inclined, maybe they learn it better, some of them are not. Those are all indirect knowledge. But unless I internalize that knowledge, right, it still remains indirect knowledge. Once I internalize it, like for example, I hear about gravity, then I have my own set of observations. There are children who keep dropping a ball bearing and a feather. Let's see which one reach faster. So they are now trying to realize that knowledge. They are not just keeping the knowledge as a bookish knowledge or an indirect knowledge. They want to make it as a realized knowledge. They want to make that knowledge on their own, right? So there is a way to understand the Bhagavad-Jnana through scriptures, and there is a way to understand the same Bhagavad-Jnana through our own discovery, through our own realization. And for that, all we need to do is remain in that yoga samsiddhi, because that there is nothing better than that Bhagavad-Jnana. And Bhagavad-Jnana is not very elusive. All we have to do is stay constantly pledged to that yoga samsiddhi state, and we will automatically discover that knowledge, realize that knowledge within ourselves, right? So very clearly, there is a distinction being drawn between an indirect knowledge and a direct or the realized knowledge. In Sanskrita, we call this as paroksha jnana, aparoksha jnana, things like that, right? Jnana, vijnana, there are different ways to call it, right? Paroksha is an indirect, para, right? It's from somebody else, through somebody else. Aparoksha is non-indirect, almost calling it as direct, but we won't call it as direct knowledge, because direct knowledge is something that comes through our jnanendriya. And jnanendriyas can be aupadika, they can be misleading, right? What we see, this is where we constantly see in many, many Advaitic discussions about the illusion, Maya, right? The thing between the rope and the snake and things like that, right? So that the aupadika, the direct knowledge, can be extremely misleading, right? So that is what the shloka is primarily hinting at. Again, more about jnana. And here Bhagavan is directly giving us, clue on how to realize the knowledge, how to make that a direct realization, right? How to obtain the aparoksha jnana. The only way for aparoksha jnana is remain put in that yoga samsiddhi. Keep on doing. nishkama karma, all the good things that he spoke about, right? The qualities of a buddhiman, right from shloka number 19 to shloka number 23. Just keep doing them. Do all the different types of yajna. Keep doing them. Stay in the yoga samsiddhi, we will realize the knowledge. So let's see Aurobindo interpretation. There is nothing in the world equal in purity to knowledge. The man who is perfected by yoga finds it of himself in the self by the course of time. Man who remains in the state of yoga, I would rather call it as rather than one who is perfected by yoga, because there is nothing called a past tense for a perfection in yoga. It's a present continuous tense. We need to remain. Tatsvayam yoga samsiddha. Because the definition of yoga samsiddhi comes in the third adhyaya, right? You know, karmaneva hi samsiddhim astita. Samsiddhi is defined in the third adhyaya, Krishna. Samsiddhim astitaha, which is a present continuous tense. They remained in the state of samsiddhi by keep on doing the work. Karmani eva. Yoga samsiddhi doesn't come as some realization, right? Yoga samsiddhi is a continuous state of action. Karmani eva samsiddhim yoga samsiddhim astitaha janakadaya. Janaka did that for 400 plus years, right? So this interpretation I would kind of keep away, because there is no past tense. I don't like the past tense for being in a state of yoga. Yoga is a continuous tense, present continuous tense, and action is inevitable. We have to keep on delivering on our duty. Karmani eva yoga samsiddhim astitaha janakadaya. That's what we hear in the third adhyaya. I think shloka number 20 or something like that. Yeah. So for the reference, look at that. So this is where I think we have to look at the translations. We have to look at the tools, but not consume everything on the face value, because some of the things are perhaps missed out. And it's quite well known, right? The best bhashya for Bhagavad-Gita is Bhagavad-Gita. Let's look at what is being spoken in Bhagavad-Gita before looking at what other bhashyas have spoken about some of these lines, right? So that's where we are. We'll now move on to the next shloka, shloka number 39. Now, also, to make it a direct knowledge, to make it an aparoksha jnana, right? How do we do that? I think that comes in this shloka. It reads like this, shloka number 39. Click on the next on top of the screen. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparah sanyatendriyah jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadhigacchati. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparah sanyatendriyah jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadhigacchati. There's a word called tatparaha. I think some of the books will call it as matparaha. Krishna quite often uses, refers to himself both in Uttama Purusha and Pratama Purusha as a third person and the first person. He both. So that's the slight difference if it is between tatparaha and matparaha. Matparaha, he will be referring to himself in the first person, and tatparaha, he's still referring to himself but in the third person. So that's the slight difference. Because at the end of this, jnana is a Bhagavad Jnana, and this is all being spoken by Bhagavan himself. So if there are patantaras that you look at, just be sure that that is what it primarily intends at. They both tend to mean the same. Right? Let's see what the Paracheda for this shloka says. Shraddhavan labhate, Shraddhavan labhate. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparaha sanyatendriyaha jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadhi gacchati. Right? What does the Anvaya give us, the unjumbled prose order? It says, Shraddhavan sanyatendriyaha tatparaha jnanam labhate. Jnanam labdhva achirena param shantim adhigacchati. Now, qualities of a person who can realize the knowledge, right? What does that mean? We click on the dictionary. Shraddhavan. You got to have absolute Shraddha. And Shraddha doesn't have another Samanarthaka pada. There is no synonym for the word Shraddha within Sanskrita. That's the one and only. It's a combination of trust, faith, offering, surrender. So it's got a few things embedded in it. By just calling it as faith can be a little misleading, like how this website says. But now, a person with Shraddha, Sanyatendriya, a person who is completely self-controlled. Sanyata, Samyak Yata, Yata, Sanyata Indriya, well controlled Indriyas. tatparaha towards that, or matparaha towards me. To, constantly pledging ourselves to that knowledge, to that supreme reality or to that knowledge, jnana, because it's all about jnana, right? Jnanam labate, he will acquire that knowledge, he will gain that knowledge, he will attain that knowledge. So these are the three qualities. A person, while being in the yoga samsiddhi, right? It's not easy to be in the state of yoga samsiddhi. Because how long can we keep on doing work? After some time, we'll all start questioning, why am I doing so much? Okay, I sacrifice so much for my kids, right? Even that kind of a thought comes in the society. In today's times, there are people who keep questioning, I did so much for my kids, right? I mean, that's the highest state of giving up, right? I mean, it can't be greater than that. Okay, what do I get? Like, that's so. It's very important to have that state of constant state of yoga samsiddhi, and the only way to remain in the state of yoga samsiddhi is by being shraddhavan, absolutely shraddha. I have no doubt that this will happen. I have no doubt that I will gain the knowledge. Shraddha, absolute trust, absolute faith, absolute surrender. Right? That's a compounded meaning that we get with the word shraddha. Absolute surrender, absolute trust, absolute faith. Together, it's not just faith. And sayatendriya, we have to control our senses, because many times that's what will drag us away, right? That's what we heard in the third chapter. Senses go weak because there is kama, there is krodha, and we keep asking, why am I doing this? So we have to be absolutely self-controlled. And tatpara, constantly look for that, be for that, constantly get tilted towards that knowledge, divine knowledge, which is the Bhagavad Rupa. We know the textbook definition, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So we know all the indirect definitions of the Brahma. With those thoughts, we have to constantly look for that. I can't look for the goodness if I can't appreciate the goodness around me, right? And when I see the goodness, when I can appreciate the goodness, I will know that is Bhagavan. So we have to be tatpara, we have to be constantly towards that Bhagavad para, towards the divine knowledge. Once we are in that path, then we will gain that knowledge. Labhate, jnanam labhate. And once we gain that knowledge, jnanam labdva, achirena, very swiftly, immediately, smoothly, param shanti madhigachati. We will attain, or we will go towards that supreme peace, supreme tranquility, param shanti. What comes after shanti? Whenever we hear the word shanti, rest assured, he will talk about sukha. No, ashantasya kutas sukham. This has been happening since the second adhyaya. Wherever he talks about shanti, it will lead to sukha. I think we will see that, right? So, when we click back, let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says for this. One who has faith, let's replace it with a non-translatable shraddha. One who has shraddha, one who has conquered and controlled the mind and senses, one who has fixed his whole consciousness, okay, on the supreme reality, tatparaha, matparaha, he attains that knowledge, jnanam labhate. And having attained that knowledge, jnanam labdhva, he goes swiftly to the supreme peace, param shanti madhigachati. Right? Now, the next one will be obviously be about sukha. If he has spoken about shanti here, he will talk about sukha next. Let's see. Shloka number 40. But ajnascha shraddhadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati nayam loko stinaparo nasukham samshayatmanah. Ajnascha shraddhadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati nayam lokosti naparo nasukham samshayatmanah. Right? When we see the padacheda, we get ajnaha cha ashraddhadhanaha cha samshaya atma vinashyati na ayam lokaha asti na paraha na sukham samshayatmanah. So yeah, when we hear shanti there, we have to hear sukha here. Right? They are all conjoined, they are all interrelated. What does the Anvaya tell us? The unjumbled prose order. Hey Arjuna, Ajnaha, Ashraddhadhanaha cha, Samshayatma cha, Vinashyati. Samshayatmanaha na ayam lokaha asti, na param sukam asti. Na paraha na sukam asti. Right? What does that mean? We click on the dictionary. Hey Arjuna, Ajnaha, the ignorant, the non-knowledgeable guy. Na jnana, jnata, na jnaha. There is no knowledge in that guy. Ajnaha. Ashraddhadhanaha, one who is without shraddha. Cha also, and Samshayatma, the one who is always with doubt, a doubting mentality, whether or not, why did I do this? Is it really worth it for me to do so much for my children, for my parents? What am I getting? Why not my brother? Why am I getting all this burden? Right? Samshayatma, vinashyati. And again, we keep hearing the word nasha, nashyati, vinashyati, pranashyati, fourfold nasha. Nasha is not just the way we understand today. Absolute annihilation. Nasha has four meanings. Anityatvam, dehahanihi, dukkha praptihi, apurnata. Anityatvam is incompleteness or non-currentness. Like, we always brood over the past or worry about the future, right? Anityatvam, dehahanihi, that's where the bodily harm comes, the annihilation. Dukkha praptihi, when what we obtain as sorrows, and apurnata, a feeling of incompleteness. So these are the four types of nasha. Nashaha chaturvidaha proktaha tadabhavu harehe sada. Only Sri Hari Paramatma is devoid of all these four types of nasha. But we all have all four. Most of us have all four constantly. Right? So nasha can be one or more of these. Right? Anityatva, dehahanihi, dukkha praptira purnata. These are the four. So vinashyati, we will get the visheshataha nashyati. We basically some special kind of nasha. Who? The one who does not get this knowledge, the one who is ignorant, does not even have that indirect knowledge or doesn't even trust that indirect knowledge. Samshayatma, Ashraddhadana, who doesn't have Shraddha, who doesn't surrender, who doesn't trust, who doesn't have the faith. Na ayam lokaha tasya, he doesn't have this world. Okay, na paraha, not hereafter. Na sukam, he does not get happiness also. Right? The jnana, right? Again, all about jnana. This is the last section from shloka number 34. We can safely call this section as the jnana yoga within the fourth adhyaya. Right? Now we will move on. So what should Arjuna do? Okay, shloka number 41, 42. I think it is like a debrief now. Finally, Krishna is concluding this discourse and asking Arjuna to get up and fight, right? So now the message, final message, summary of message to Arjuna. Shloka number 41, it reads like this. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadhnanti dhananjaya. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadhnanti dhananjaya. What does the padacheda give us? Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadhnanti dhananjaya. No sandhi. Padacheda is as good as the shloka. Let's see what the anvaya, the prose order gives us. Hey Dhananjaya. See, Dhananjaya is one who gets dhana. Dhana is wealth. But a kshatriya, how does he get a wealth? He only gets wealth by winning war. Because once you win the war, there are spoils of the war. And he has won so many wars, so many battles, and he's won a lot of wealth also. Right? But winning wealth is not the primary objective. The primary objective is to win the war. Right? That's the Swadharma. Then you get the wealth. The more wealthier you are, the better. But wealth should be an indirect thing. Right? So beautiful sambodhana here. Right? Hey Dhananjaya. Jnana sanchinna samshayam yoga sanyasta karmanam atmavantam karmani na nibadhnanti. So in the debrief, he's trying to give a very important message. What does that mean? Let's click on the dictionary. Right? Hey Dhananjaya, oh Arjuna. Jnana sanchinna samshayam. Okay, jnanat, sanchinna samshayam. Like, the one who has cleared. Sam chinna. Chinna is cut asunder, right? You cut it. Chitva, like, chedana. Samyak chinna, like, very well cut asunder. Samshayam. Through what? Through jnana. The one who has destroyed his doubts with that knowledge. And yoga sanyasta karmanam. Okay. And all karmanam, like, doing all the actions in the yoga sanyasta state. Yoga is karma yoga without any attachment, without any karma. And sanyasta is basically without any material attachment. That is sanyasta. The one who has given up all the works by yoga, which means you are doing the work. When you give up the sanyasta karmanam in yoga, means you're only giving up the attachment over the result, but not giving up the action. So yoga sanyasta karmanam, jnana sanchinna samshayam. Okay, atmavantam, the one who is in his own self-possession. For such a person, atmavantam, to such a person, karmani na nibadhnanti. There is no bandhana from the karma, right? There is no sin that you will acquire. Let's see what and karma bandhana nibadhnanti. If something gets attached, that is papa, right? Ashubha, right? We will have questions lingering on. Let's see what Aurobinda interpretation says. He who has destroyed all doubt by knowledge and has by yoga given up all the works, and that's a very important distinction. By yoga given up all the works, which means all the karma-arthaka works. Giving up yoga, in yoga you don't give up action, right? But giving up all the works in yoga then means you do it in a nishkama way. And is in possession of the self, atmavantam. Karmani na nibadhanti. He is not bound by his works. Oh Dhananjaya, hey Dhananjaya. Very simple, right? But it can lead to some confusion because sanyasta, he uses the word sanyasta. Yoge sanyasta karmana. In yoga, giving up all the action. Sanyasta karmana. Now, sanyasa, see, nyasa. Nyasa can hold two extreme meanings, right? It can be a tight embrace, it can be a renunciation, it can be both. It can signify renouncement, it can imply embrace. Like, for example, when we do japa, we do something called the anganyasa, karanyasa. There we actually are embracing them. We hold on to them. And in sannyasa, we typically think that it's all given up. So some of these words can mean extreme opposite ways, but eventually they converge to the same point because what we embrace is the spiritual aspect. What we give up is the material thing. So whenever we use the word sannyasa, it is only from the material attachment that we use the word sannyasa, not from the spiritual embrace. There is nothing called sannyasa from the spiritual embrace. So this is something that we need to draw the distinction whenever we hear such words. The meanings cannot be absolute in some of these things, right? So this is what Aurobindo interpretation is. Okay, so let's move on to the final shloka of this chapter, shloka number 42, and this is where I think Bhagavan is done with the message for now, right? Tasmadajnana sambhutam hrutstam jnanasinatmanah chitvainam samshayam yogam atishto tishta bharata. Tasmadajnana sambhutam hrutstam jnanasinatmanah chitvainam samshayam yogamatishto tishta bharata. Right? Padacheda. Tasmat ajnana sambhutam hrutstham jnana asina atmanah chitva enam samshayam yogam atishta uttishta bharata. Right? What does the unjumbled prose order give us? The Anvaya says, hey Arjuna, right? Tasmat he Bharata, Ajnana Sambhutam, Hrutstham, Enam, Atmanah Samshayam, Jnana Asina Chitva, Yogamatishta, Uttishta. Right? What does that mean? We click on dictionary. Hey Arjuna, right? Tasmat, therefore, hey Bharata. Oh, in bracket we have to go. Bharata is Bharatasya Apatyam Puman, right? He's the He's the progeny of the Bharata Vamsha. He's a Bharata Vamshi, which is Arjuna. But look at the word Bharata. Bharata, I mean, it is my name, of course, but it is Bhagavad-Gita. See, this entire jnana is the Bhagavad Jnana, right? Now, if you are tappara, matpara, if you go behind Shraddhavan, Shraddhavan, Labate Jnanam, tappara, like, you have to be towards that, constantly pledge yourself in the path of Bhagavan, right, to acquire this knowledge. If you become that, you are Bharata, you are Bhagavad Rata. Bhagavata Rata. Rata is basically one who is leaning towards something, right? One who is liking something. If you constantly stay in Bhagavad Rati, you are a Bharata, right? So the use of words, the Gaunatmaka sense, they make a beautiful sense here, right? So Bharata, such a nice Sambodhana for Arjuna, right? So where he uses the word Dhananjaya, there is a significance there. Where he uses the word, Pandava, Pandu, Panda, it's all Buddhi. So we have to be a little careful, pay some attention to the kind of names being called out. Right? They all have some deeper meaning and very contextual. They make a lot of sense to that particular sloka. So here, hey, if you are now going in the path of Bhagavad Jnana, you are a Bharata, you are a Bhagavad Rata, right? So, hey Bharata, Tasmat, Ajnana Sambhutam, the one that is Sambhuta, Samyak Bhuta, one what is, completely rooted in this Ajnana, Ajnana Sambhutam, Hrutstham, the one that is in the Hrut Sthita, the one that is rooted in your heart, the one that is staying in your heart. Hrutstham, Hriday Sthitam, Enam, this, Atmanah Samshayam, the doubt in yourself. Okay, Jnana Asina, with the sword of knowledge, by the sword of knowledge, Chitva, having cut asunder, Yoga Matishtha, resort to yoga. Get into yoga. Yoga Matishtha, Uttishtha, get up and fight. Get up is always, whenever it's Uttishtha, Tektu Uttishtha Parantapa, which means get up and fight. Get up is not just get up because he is just, Visrujya Sasharam Chatam, Yoga, Shoka Samvigda Manasa. He's given up the weapons and then he's lying down. He's lying down in the chariot, right? So when Krishna is telling Uttishta, basically get up and fight. And fight is something that we need to imply. Okay, so basically with this weapon called knowledge, you please get rid of this doubt which is seated in your heart, which is rooted in your ignorance. That's what he basically says. Right? So let's see what Aurobindo interpretation is. Okay. Therefore, having cut asunder with the sword of knowledge this doubt that has arisen out of ignorance and abides in the heart, O Arjuna, resort to yoga and do thou stand up, O Bharata. Get up and fight. It's very beautiful, right? So indirectly, Krishna gave a lot of indirect knowledge. And he's telling the only way for you to realize this knowledge is by being in the state of Yoga Samsiddhi. And Yoga Samsiddhi cannot happen if you sit quiet. You have to do action. Karmani eva samsiddhim asitaha. The only way to remain in the state of Yoga Samsiddhi is by keep on pledging yourself to the path of action. So continue doing your action. Right? That's where we end. And the expectation from Bhagavan, and every time we end one discourse of Bhagavan, is that, okay, Bhagavad-Gita is over. Whatever has to be told has been told now. In this section alone, everything has been told. The Paramatma Tattva is told. Okay, what is Nivritti has been properly explained. Yajna has been very beautifully explained, different types of Yajna. And then what you gain as a knowledge, because without knowledge there is no mukti, right? Jnana devatu kaivalyam. So you will get the kaivalya only through jnana, right? So jnana has been explained very, very nicely. Now you get up and fight. The entire Bhagavad-Gita, I think round 6 of Bhagavad-Gita is over. 6 rounds of Bhagavad Pravachana, Upadesha is over. Right? 3 in 2nd chapter, some 2 in 3rd chapter, and 1 in the 4th chapter. 6 rounds of Bhagavad-Gita is over now. Right? This is done with the 4th Adhyaya. We now move on to the 5th Adhyaya. Before that, Vijayji, you have some question? Any thought?
So thank you very much for making us clear what Bharata actually means. So that was truly insightful. So I was actually quite curious about how you are able to maintain so much enthusiasm for this. So today it answered.
Maintain what? Sorry, Vijay.
I was curious about how you are able to maintain so much enthusiasm for the subject of Gita. So I think it got answered today. Thank you very much.
No. I mean, see, when you like doing something like karmani akarma yaha pashyet, if this is a work, if this is a duty, if there is a sense of burdening sense of duty come, that's where the problem lies. You can say I have a verbal diarrhea. I like talking about this. Yeah, because I take it as a recreation. Like this is a nice way of, you know, putting my hair down. It's a nice thing. Praveena ji is in the audience. You should listen to her talk. She can go on. I have a 90-minute target, right? I normally try to wrap up my sessions in 90-minute mark. Her sessions don't have an end time. So when you have people like Praveena ji there, you shouldn't talk about enthusiasm. For people like me, we become very, very small in that sense. But nonetheless, ask her. I think she likes doing that as well because not only the enthusiasm, her expressions also are very, very. You can hear that she's enjoying. That's her recreation. She likes doing that a lot. When she explains the Tirupavai, when you hear some of the Krishna Leelas, she will be talking like a Balakrishna. like, like she'll be talking as though she's one of those gopis standing there, the same age group as that Balakrishna, and trying to play with him. She will have the intonation of a small kid also coming out. It's just involvement, I think, yeah. Just like the fact that we all like it. But nonetheless, so jnana has been given, but I think, see, on one side, Krishna's message is that get up, yoga matishta, get into yoga, uttishta, get up and fight, right? But just before the previous shloka number 41, he says, yoga sanyasta karmanam. He uses the word called yoga sanyasta karmanam. Jnana sanchinna samshayam, right? So, sannyasa. So the question is, are you praising sannyasa or are you praising yoga? That's the question. I think that's where we come to this chapter, 5th adhyaya. It's called the Sannyasa Yoga. See, again, to make sense of where we are, right? When we look at the overall sense, the second chapter is all about Sankhya, analytical knowledge, Karma, the knowledge around work industry, perseverance, like assiduity, right? That labor intensive sense, right? And jnana, knowledge, awareness. These are the three things that we spoke about. Sannyasa is basically selflessness, or in common sense in the corporate world, we say, right? More we than less of me, which is basically team player. We are all team players, right? We are not in an independent world. We are an interdependent world, right? So, in the family, I'm a team player. In my society, I'm a team player. In my community, I'm a team player. In my office, I'm a team player. Even if I'm the boss, essentially I need to be a team player. Mahendra Singh Dhoni cannot be the boss without being a team player, right? He will retire very soon if he does more of boss than a team player, right? So essentially they are all team players. We are all team players, right? And team team spirit is a very, very valued, essential skill today. Whenever we go to any appraisal discussion, how good a team player you are, right? In the interviews, we keep asking this question, and this is nothing new. This is being spoken. Like the concept of sannyasa is all about being a team player. How can we, expand ourselves to the wider good than our own, small kupa manduka, the tunnel visioned, needs and wants. Right? So, sannyasa, we can safely say, it's a team spirit, right? How to acquire that team spirit. Right? That's an essential skill. That's an essential trait that is being looked up. So when we look at this Bhagavad-Gita, essentially it's giving you all the good traits to possess, to become an excellent performer in life. Analytical trait, work industry trait, awareness trait, Now the team spirit trait, right? So it's all needed. Okay, we will make more sense of all these traits once we complete six chapters, and that's where it will all fall into a nice package, a workable package. But until then, we will just consume little by little, right? So fifth adhyaya begins with this question from Arjuna. So it reads like this: Arjuna uvacha sanyas sanyasam karmanam krishna punaryogam cha shamsasi yachreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Sanyasam karmanam krishna punaryogam cha shamsasi yachreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. What does the padacheda give us? When we scroll down, Arjuna uvacha sanyasam karmanam krishna punaha yogam cha shamsasi yat shreyah etayoh ekam tat me bruhi sunishchitam. There are some sandhi, so punaha yogam, punar yogam, yat shreyah, yat shreyah etayoh, yat shreya etayoh, etayoh ekam, etayor ekam, tat me, tan me. Right, no? So these are some of the sandhis that we see. What does the unjumbled prose order give us? Arjuna uvacha, hey Krishna, karmanam sanyasam. Okay, let's say shamsasi. We'll add the word shamsasi. Karmanam sanyasam shamsasi. Punaha yogam cha shamsasi. Etayoho yat ekam shreyah tat me sunishchatam bruhi. What does that mean? On top, we click on the word, click on the dictionary. Hey Krishna, Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna speaks now. Arjuna is asking a question. Hey Krishna. So Krishna is again very attractive, right? Hey Krishna, karmanam sanyasam shamsasi. Shamsasi, prashamsasi. Oh. So karmanam sanyasam shamsasi. You praise the sannyasa of karma, right? So that's the way you do the prashamsa of sannyasa of the karma. Karmanam sanyasam shamsasi. Punaha yogam cha shamsasi. And again, you do the prashamsa of the yoga, of the karma yoga. First like for example, first he says in sloka number 41, in the previous adhyaya, no, yoga sanyasta karmanam, jnana sanchinna samshayam, atmavantam na karmani nibadhanti. If you're given up all your work in yoga, there's nothing karma bandhana for you. But the immediate next sloka he says, atishto, yogam atishtaha, chitva enam samshayam, jnana atina, yogam atishta, get up in yoga, get up and fight, yogam atishta uttishta. So I think the man got a little confused here. He says, karmanam sanyasam shamsasi, O Krishna, you praise the sannyasa of karma, literally can mean renunciation of action. Punaha yogam cha shamsasi, and again you praise yoga. Now that's the confusion, right? Duality. Again he's asking the same question. Etayoho yat ekam, the one between the two of them, shreyah, that is good for me. Tat me sunishchitam bruhi. Tell me that sunishchitam, definitively, decisively. Right? So tell me what is, so this is the fourth or fifth time Arjuna is using the word Shreya, Shreya. So keen on knowing what is good for him. Okay, kept on using. The second adhyaya begins with, Yachreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham yachreya syat nishchitam bruhi. And then he again says the same thing in the third adhyaya. Okay, when he says, Vyamishreneva vakyena tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuyam shreya. Again here, tell me what is good for me. Right? Repeatedly, Arjuna is only bothered about one thing. So here, his question is, you praise the sannyasa, then you praise the yoga also. Tell me what is definitively good for me. See, at the front of it, it looks like a genuine confusion, but I think there is a little bit of bias also. Because no matter what Krishna is telling you, Krishna has told him not sannyasa, yoga sannyasta karmanam. He didn't take away the word yoga. The sannyasa is also yoga sanya. Yoge sanyasta karmana, which means do selfless action without any ashraya on the karma phala. That's what he intends. But Arjuna listens what he likes to listen because he's decided what is shreya for him. Okay, the second adhyaya he says what is good for him, which is shreya bhoktum bhaikshyam. Begging is better for me for livelihood. He's decided. So that confirmation bias perhaps is playing in his mind. And that's where he wants to see, okay, you praise sannyasa, then you praise karma yoga. Tell me what is good. So I think there is a little bit of confirmation bias. I think so he's still not completely in his senses. Because Arjuna is a great guy, right? I mean, he can't be like this. But nonetheless, let's see what Aurobindo translation says. It says, Arjuna said, thou declarest to me the renunciation of works as good, O Krishna, and again you declarest to me yoga. Which one of these is better? Tell me that with clear decisiveness. I think when we read this verbatim, it can be a little, I don't know. Our quality of English is not as high as perhaps this website. Right? So let's keep it simple. You praise sannyasa, then you praise karma. Tell me very decisively which one is good. Very simply put, right? That's the essence of the shloka. So Bhagavan responds, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. That's the next shloka. Click on the next on top of the screen, right? Shloka number 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Sannyasa karma yogascha nishreyasa karavubhau tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. Sannyasa karma yogascha nishreyasa karavubhau tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. The Padacheda says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sannyasah karma yoga cha nishreyasakarau ubhau tayoh tu karma sannyasat karma yoga vishishyate. When we unjumble and look at the Anvaya, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sannyasah karma yoga cha ubhau nishreyasakarau tayoh tu karma sannyasa karma yoga vishishyate. The Anvaya is almost in the same order as the shloka here, right? Almost. Let's see what it means. Hey Arjuna, when we click on the link called dictionary, right? Hey Arjuna, sannyasa karma yoga cha. Sannyasa and karma yoga. Ubhau, both are. Nishreya sakarau, are good. Without doubt, they are good. Nishreya sakarau. Tayohotu, but in between them, okay, karma sannyasa, rather than renunciation of work, karma yoga, the yoga of karma, nishkama yoga, vishishyate, is special, is distinguished, vishesha, right? Vishishyate, is special, it is distinguished, right? So he doesn't tell Arjuna, hey, you didn't hear properly. He doesn't go ballistic, right? He goes soft. Okay, you got a little confusion. Sannyasa is also good. Yoga is also good. Both are excellent for you, no doubt. But between them, if you're thinking of karma sannyasa, no. Rather than karma sannyasa, karma yoga is better. You can't do karma sannyasa. You can't do renunciation of work. But sannyasa is good as karma yoga. Both are good, right? Now he explains, goes on to explain little detail. So the way he is, bringing attention, Arjuna back into the context is so beautiful. He never rejected anything, but he was only playing the assertive tone, right? Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says for this, right? Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the blessed Lord says, renunciation and yoga, both, works, yoga of the works, both bring about the soul's salvation. Nishreya Sakarau. But of the two, Tayohutu, yoga of works, karma yoga, is distinguished above the renunciation of works. Right? So look at the way he's played with the words. He says sannyasa is as good as karma yoga. But if you're looking at karma sannyasa, no. Karma yoga is better. Right? That's the chief, distinguishing line. That's where we need to somewhere see the interpretations and the translations with a pinch of salt try to understand what exactly Krishna is trying to say. And this is where it becomes extremely important for us to keep looking at the words as they appear in the shloka. Most of us, what we do when we initially read the Bhagavad Gita, we gloss over. And in the gloss over, we forget what the words are in the shloka. We only look at the translation, right? And this is another issue that we often face. You know, soak up the actual words of Bhagavan as clearly as possible. Look at the words and then try to make sense. I think we will catch these nuances which are perhaps sometimes missed in the interpretation. Now that doesn't insinuate any allegations against the interpretation. When you look at the interpretation across these 700 shlokas, they still make valuable yoga shastra, right? But we try to make pratipadartha, right? We try to understand the pratipadartha. So we will continue doing our 2 cents around this. So Krishna doesn't reject Arjuna's confusion. He accepts it as a valid, genuine question because he is the one who spoke in the third adhyaya, right? Joshaye sarva karmani. You inspire confidence in, inspire energy, Josh in every activity. And Krishna vinna vichalayet. Don't, sway them away from the path. Keep them, you go along with them. Right? So all the Upadesha that he is given in some of the earlier verses, he is properly living up to that, as an example. We move on to the next shloka. Click on the next on top of the screen. The third shloka, which reads like this. Jneyah sa nitya sannyasi yo na dveshti na kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. Jneyah sa nitya sannyasi yo na dveshti na kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. Let's look at the Paracheda for this. Jneyah saha nitya sannyasi yaha na dveshti na kankshati nirdvandvah hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. What does the Anvaya give us? Hey Mahabaho, yaha na dveshti na kankshati saha nitya sannyasi jneyah hi nirdvandvaha saha sukham bandhat pramuchyate. So, very interesting shloka. I think we need to spend some time. I think this can be the last shloka for the day. Let us see what it means. Mahabaho. Whenever Krishna has to bring the sense of responsibility into the head of Arjuna, he uses the word Mahabaho. Hey Mahabaho, because Mahabaho means mighty shoulder, right? Mighty Bahu. And shouldering the responsibility is a very common idiomatic phrase even in English, right? So, sense of responsibility is pretty great when we hear the word Mahabaho. Yaha, the one who na dveshti, doesn't have any dvesha, na kankshati, doesn't have any akanksha. Saha, that guy, nitya sannyasi, jneyah, know him to be a nitya sannyasi. Very interesting word. There is nothing called part-time sannyasi. You are a sannyasi or not. Okay, there is nitya. Nitya is a very interesting qualifier here. Nitya sannyasi. Right? Jneyah, he. Nirdvandvaha, doesn't have any confusion. Saha sukham bandhat pramuchyate. One way of looking at sukham bandhat pramuchyate is very swiftly, very easily, he will overcome all the bandhana. Or he will overcome the bandhana of seeking sukha all along. Very extremely creative interpretation that I'm giving, but nonetheless, sukham bandhat pramuchyate. He will overcome the bondage of seeking sukha all along. That's a creative translation. Don't take me too seriously, but yeah, the primary meaning of this line is he will overcome the karma bandhana, okay, very swiftly, with happiness, with easily. Right? So that's what it means primarily. But because Arjuna has been constantly asking what is Shreya, what is Shreya, what is Shreya, between this and that, what is Shreya? So there is Dvandva constant. So Krishna is playing in the mind. The one who is Nitya Sannyasi, he doesn't have any confusion. The one who is a Nitya Sannyasi, he doesn't have any Dvesha. A one who is a nitya sannyasi, he doesn't have any akanksha, na kankshati, na kinchitapi kankshati. He doesn't desire anything. He doesn't have any expectation. He doesn't have any dvandva. And jnaya, no. Few things, right? Arjuna, no. You know it now. So indirectly, it's touching him subtly. While not letting him down completely, you should know Arjuna, a nitya sannyasi, yaha, nitya yoha, the one who's a nitya sannyasi, he doesn't have any dvesha, that I can only do this, I can't do war, I can only do begging. He doesn't have any dvesha. That, when mom gives me some work, no, I can't go to the shop, I can only do some things inside the house. No dvesha, no akanksha. I can only do, if something has to be done for the sake of the house, like yesterday we had a festival, some of us. Some of us need to do different things. When I'm telling my daughter, you have to put the toranam, right? The mango leaves in front of the house. She can't tell me, Papa, no, I can't do that. Of course, we all got up together, got up early, took bath, be part of some of the initial pujas and things like that. And then when we are distributing, you can't say that, okay, I will not cook. Suddenly, one who is good at cooking, they have to do the cooking, right? So when we are nitya sannyasi, when we are not too attached to the material side of things, sannyasa is basically detachment from the material side. That distinction, I think we spoke about that, right? So one who are nitya sannyasi, we don't have any special dislikes and likes, right? When we work for the team, I can't say I can only do this. If the situation arises, Rahul Dravid has to go behind the stumps and keep the wickets, and he did that, and that's why we know him. That's why we like him a lot. We like Rahul Dravid because he was versatile. He put team above himself. So one who's a Nitya Sannyasi, Arjuna, no, he doesn't have any likes and dislikes. No, because you don't know, right? Jnaya. He doesn't have any confusion. Constantly Arjuna has been this or that, this or that. No dvandva. Okay, Sukham Bandha Pramuchate. If you are that kind of a Nitya Sannyasi, you will swiftly overcome the Karma Bandhana, A, and B. My creative interpretation is that you will overcome the bondage to seeking that pleasure all along, seeking the Sukha all along. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. Right? It reads like this. He should be known as always a sannyasi, even when he is doing action, something that interpreted like, who neither dislikes nor desires, for free from dualities, he is released easily and happily from the bondage. Right? I think, again, let me come back. A simple thing is there is nothing called a part-time sannyasi that, from 9 to 6, I will be a sannyasi where I'm supposed to be working, right? I'll be a sannyasi. And then after 6 o'clock, I'll come back to being a rasika. I can't be like that, right? So, sannyasi is a nitya sannyasi. And that nitya sannyasi doesn't have any likes or dislikes that I will do this or that. You should do whatever comes your way, whatever you're supposed to do. And doesn't have any confusion whether this is good for me or that is good for me. And he will overcome the bandhana, sukham, very easily, very happily. So that's where we stop today. There are any questions, thoughts, an honest attempt at understanding the word by word meaning of 2, 1. Namaste Vasudevaya Priyasa me Priyottama Samasta Guna Sampurna Nirdosha Nandadayine Mukopi Yat Prasadena Mukunda Shayanayate Rajarajayate Rikto Raghavendram Tamashraye Bharati Ramana Mukhya Pranam Sarada Shri Gopala Krishna Priyatam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Have a beautiful everyone. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Wish you all a very blessed Hanumat Jayanti wishes. Have a great week ahead. Have a great weekend ahead. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri
Jai
Krishna.
Shri
Jai Shri
Krishna.
Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna.